Group of panelists here representing trade association business, and that is the people who are out there to help create some guidelines and share best practices and join together to support the mobile industry. Just to kick things off, to let you know, in case you don't know, there are some guidelines that have been released in mobile. There have been guidelines out there for a while with ESOMAR. We've recently gone through those guidelines and shortened them down to fit the mobile world and the ADD world, so that they might be used. And that was just released last month. So if you're not aware of that, you can find those guidelines on ESOMAR's website, which is esomar.org, ESOMAR.org, or you can find it on the MMRA website, mmra-global.org. So just so you know, those guidelines are out there. There's two versions. One is commitments to respondents and responsibilities of researchers. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go. But to kick things off with, and we do want your questions too, because you may have questions that we've just never even thought about. So going real time on this, we would love to have your input, your questions about these things, and we'll address them as we go. But just to kick things off and let you know who's up here and sort of maybe your own point of view on what is your association doing about mobile, and what are you doing to help promote it or create sandbox rules or anything. And we'll just have you tell us who you are briefly and your point of view on mobile for your association.
Sure. My name is Diana Lucaci. I am the Canadian chair on the Neuromarketing Science and Business Association. The association came out about 2 years ago with a code of ethics that basically discusses how consumer neuroscience research should be applied to all research, whether it's mobile or retail or any other space. So right now there are standards in place. There's a couple of regulations we have to follow when we conduct applied neuroscience research.
Excellent.
Hi, Hilaire, MFour Mobile Research. We launched Surveys on the Go, which is an app available in all the app stores and on tablets. I think I'm the only one up here with a vested interest, and so I represent a company. We're in mobile. We're the only mobile-only panel. And I think what's important to recognize is that no real definitions for mobile have been developed or accepted yet. And so when we ask the question, well, can you geolocate? One firm will say, yes, right down to the city or state, right down to the zip code. Well, because we're an application, when we say geolocate, we mean right down within a few feet, right, when you walk through the door of a location. And so just getting those standards, getting those definitions, getting the accepted terminology, and having everyone use the same language, I think is going to be important. And the last point I'll make quickly is we're in the early days of almost the web. And so anyone in 25 years ago could say they were web-enabled, and they'd say, well, I'm from www. And not everyone knew what www meant. And now if you look at your business cards, we're MFour.com. And I'm going to say MFour.com like 7 more times before the end of this presentation. But I think it's going to be important over the next few years to really develop, understand, and accept some similar language when we talk about mobile.
Excellent. Sandy.
Thanks, Mark. Sandy Janzen. I'm here representing the MRIA. The MRIA is the single voice of market research in Canada. So we represent all Canadians when it comes to market research. We represent individuals as well as firms. We have kind of a host of responsibility to our members, which is everything from lobbying government and providing certification, education courses. But one of the primary things that we think we serve is creating this positive environment for our members to do business in, and that is measured by our success. We really measure it by how well we're treating Canadians and how well they want to participate in our research. So really primary amongst that are our goals is to respect consumer rights and to ensure their privacy. And so we really represent a forward push to self-regulation, and we actually follow and accept all ESOMAR guidelines and rules. And I think that the shortened rules are going to be really handy. I think one of the purposes is that people will actually read them and understand them and everyone be on the same page to what Chris was saying. So we can all just agree about how we're going to move forward. So, excellent.
My name is Reg Baker, and as Mark said, I'm a consultant to the Professional Standards Committee of ESOMAR, which we think of as the World Research Organization. And over the years, ESOMAR has developed a wide range of guidelines that cover pretty much the entire field of research methods. And all those guidelines have in common partly what Sandy said, which is how do we treat people with respect and in ways that encourage them to cooperate with us in market research, but also how do we do things in a related sense that make us as an industry look good, particularly in the eyes of regulators, and how do we help researchers understand what the legal frameworks are that we all have to work within, ethics aside, right? I mean, the first bar is do what is legal. And so mobile is a real challenge because of all the capabilities of mobile devices, of the kinds of privacy issues which immediately come to bear when you start talking about smartphones. And so what we've done with this guideline is attempt to really take the traditional values of research along with these rapidly evolving legal environments and put them into a guideline which helps people understand exactly what we think we ought to be doing as an industry as we continue to develop mobile methodologies.
So I'm Scott Weinberg. I'm the Upper Midwest MRA chapter, and the current position from the National MRA and Mobile is that it is under construction.
Yeah, and I have to point out, when we created MMRA, which is the Mobile Marketing Research Association, immediately ESOMAR reached out and said, hey, look, we don't need to rewrite the rules. We don't need to be in opposition. Let's all work together on this. And I think that that's been a guiding principle with all of our associations ever since. So I've got a couple of topics here just in the guide that we want to address. And one is evaluating access, control, and ownership of passive data. I had the opportunity to have a panel like this in Kuala Lumpur back in February for the MRMW there. And we had Hilaire, which is one of the largest owners of passive data in the universe when it comes to all things mobile. And the guy basically said, you know, if you want it, come and get it. We have no idea what to do with it. If you know how to order it, we'll give it to you. What are your thoughts on something like that? Anyone having a point of view on access to passive data being readily available but totally unsearchable?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one.
All right.
One of the most, I think, interesting things about mobile is that the passive aspects of it. I mean, how many of you have, a mobile device on you? I'm willing to bet just about everyone, and the one who doesn't lost their phone in the last few days. And so it's everywhere. And one of the beauties of research with that is that you can collect information as it's naturally happening. Every person in this room knows that when you're using Internet Sample, 2 days after the fact, you're asking them what they think about the experience. How I think about the experience is not how I felt at the time I was experiencing it. And so the fact that you can get at that information at the point of decision, at the point of emotion, is I think, worlds beyond where the research industry is today. Now the question becomes, what do you do with it? Our developer accidentally sent out a survey about 3 months ago. And it was pick circle or square, it was tell us about yourself, and accidentally sent it to 25,000 people on our panel. We get about a 25% response rate. We got 800 word responses. I drink too much. I'm answering this in the bathroom. My wife doesn't know I'm having an affair. They want to share data, and they're doing it at the point that it's happening. And they're taking pictures. They're doing it many times while they're driving, which goes to the code here. Now, the question becomes, this is fascinating. This is great color. But what do you do with that? How do you analyze it? How do you look at it, and how do you aggregate it? And right now, much of it's going on by hand.
And even without the voice, we have neuroscience involved. And Red?
Well, I just want to just go back a minute because I'm not sure Chris quite answered the question. Right?
Yep.
Because I think the issue, there is an issue here of what we might call, for lack of a better term, data provenance, which has to do with how did these data get collected? Did the people who these data belong to, and this is a principle of EU law, that you basically your personal data belongs to you. You can't give it away. No one can buy it from you. Somebody can use it with your permission, but ultimately it's yours. Where did all this come from? Should I have? I mean, I can walk down the street in New York and I can buy a nice watch. Most of the people in this room probably would not do that sort of thing. And so there's a real issue with data around whether it's passive data or any data in the age of big data, where we have to ask the question, for what purpose were these data collected in the beginning? Is the purpose to which I want to put these data within that same realm? And is there the full permission that I need by the people who actually gave this data to go ahead and do that? And that's one of the things which we quickly lose track of in this data-rich world in which we live.
Coming from a neuroscience perspective, I can tell you we're still figuring it out. When we collect data, brain data, on any participant, that is not released, that's not shared with anybody. We have a lot of questions to still answer, I think, as a neuromarketing industry, but I can tell you some companies may choose to do work with certain segments of people. Some companies may use ethics more strictly than others. Ultimately, though, the way we go about analyzing all this information and the way we combine neuroscience data, or what I like to call little data because it's in the brain, it's really happening at the very small scale with big data, I think that's going to be a really powerful thing moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, I don't know if I understood your question exactly, but it scared me a bit.
It should.
They had this huge database of all kinds of stuff, and they hadn't done anything with it, but if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether it was really just they were having problems categorizing things, because obviously that is a question, but the fact that there are, and it's exactly what Reg was saying, they had to have explicit permission to be collecting it, in my mind. And I think one of the things that's one of the primary tenets of the ESOMAR guidelines is transparency, right? Mm-hmm. It's not saying what you can and can't absolutely do. It's saying as long as everyone knew what was going on and they agreed, and there's permission. And
in this case, it is aggregate. So this is Hilaire saying we have oceans of data.
And not personally
identifiable. And we have no idea where to start diving.
And it's not personally identifiable?
It's not personally identifiable, no.
Okay. There's big differences between big data and specific surveys, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we should have a dividing line. But let me ask the room this: how many of you have downloaded an app in the last 2 months? How many of you signed the permission? How many of you opted in? All of you. How many of you read that? Okay, so we're getting permission up front. You're satisfying your legal requirements. The question, I think, which is fair, is what are your ethical requirements? Mm-hmm. And so when we're doing GPS surveys, we're opting people in, and then we're opting them out as they take it, or we're opting them in on a monthly or semi-monthly basis. Because I think knowledge, understanding of what's going on is important.
So in that case, you own the data because they opted in. Take someone like Google. Google owns their data. You go into a search, they own it. So, when you start talking about that on your mobile device, they know where you asked it. And if you've ever done a search for, I don't know, anything, Starbucks, and you're on your mobile device and you use Google, it's going to give you the Starbucks nearest you. A little bit weird. But there's another part of this coming down the pike, and that's all these wearable devices. I think you have one on, right? What's it called? An Up Band by Apple, right? Jawbone. Oh, Jawbone. And you, Nike, and someone else is wearing one?
Fitbit.
Okay, Fitbit. Okay. I just went to the Apple store the other day, and there was a whole shelf of all these wearable things, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, because now we're going to be dealing with biometrics. They're going to be able to interpret your feeling by how much sweat you've got, by your body temperature, by your heart rate, and where you are and what you're doing. So are you scared now? And believe me, we have to address these kinds of issues as they come along. The technology is moving along so fast that we're just trying to keep up with it in many cases as an industry. So I want to take some questions. I see a couple hands up there. Yeah, shout it out.
Just one item that I think is important to discuss, how much are the manufacturers already taking on this responsibility? Because I know that if I want to be anonymous, I can download on permissions, that's all that fine. Then I can turn off my GPS, and that's going to shut down any applications I have that want to try to track my location. How much are the manufacturers taking on, and how much do we need to try and pick up if they don't?
When you say manufacturer, you're talking about device manufacturer? Or are you talking about?
Probably the software.
So a software guy like okay, so what's happening with the guidelines, we actually advocate informing the respondent how to turn this stuff off, okay? And I think it's pretty clear that you have these push notifications say, do you want it, turn it on, you have to have it on in order to participate, et cetera. Reg?
Well, but, there's sort of three levels here, right? There's the what can we do with this technology. There is what legally can be done with this technology, and there's really what we as researchers should do with this technology. And the Google case is a good case in point because, as we all know, Google breaks the law on a regular basis. They get their hands slapped, and for them a $5 million fine is basically a hand slap. Nobody's company in this room probably could handle a $5 million fine. So you can play this sort of be at the edges from a research point of view and periodically run afoul of the regulators. But I think we really have to think about should, and at some level, there is this sort of thing that Chris just referenced, which is, I think the data I see are roughly 1 in 5 people read the privacy policies. Right? But yet, on the same token, if you ask these same people how they feel about some of the uses which their data are being put to, more like 65% of them disagree. And so, it comes down to a question of where we as a research industry want to position ourselves in this and in perhaps the shitstorm that's coming on privacy, or maybe not, who knows. But, these are the real issues we have to grapple with, which is how much of what we can do we think we should do?
We've got about 5 minutes left, and I just did see one of the messages here say they're starving slowly, and 1:15 is very late lunch. So we're going to try to keep this as short as we can. And do know that these conversations have only been going on for about 3 years now.
But there's a fourth variable, and I think it's important. It's there. I'm 45. I don't like people following me around, and I don't like the government or businesses or corporations or whomever, and I know my wife doesn't like it when she thinks I know where she always is. So, and that's an age issue.
Wifetracker.app, right?
No, she's in Walmart right now. But the issue is there's age differences. And so if you're under 30, you're probably not wearing a watch, and you probably don't mind with the app tracker on. And so we've got 78% of our 300 and something thousand person panel with their push notification allowed and with their GPS tracker allowed. And so every time we've got projects going for big corporations, and so they'll want to track, and we can organically let them know when they've walked into it. We'll say, we noticed you've walked into a Walmart, we've noticed you've walked into a theater, take this study, and for $1, they're more than happy to let us know. And so I think that fourth variable, the respondent, needs to be factored into the analysis.
Absolutely. And in some cases in the U.S., that's fine and dandy, but as Reg points out, in some areas of the world, you really can't sell this. You can rent it, right?
Well, and the issue is really informed consent.
Informed consent and transparency. We do have a question here, which is for our neuroscientists here, and that is, how do neuroscientists plan to overlay big data with little brain data in real time? Got a plan on that?
You got 2 minutes.
That's a big question. Measuring brain activation in real time is expensive right now. So I think as technology will advance, we will have technologies that we'll have different tools, different caps, different ways of measuring the brain that objectively and accurately. So how do we plan to actually overlay this? I think we can be experts in our domain. We can be experts at measuring emotion in the brain accurately. And new technologies are coming out to make this scalable. I think the next 5 years are going to be really interesting and definitely something to watch.
Yep, those EEG hats, right?
We have the EEG headsets. There's so many ways of measuring emotion.
Okay, yes, another question.
So speaking to the privacy agreement that you kind of accept when you download these apps, we were recently at a company retreat and we were demoing some of these products and asked our coworkers to install the app so that we could take ourselves through it, and every single one of them accepted. And once we got into it, I kind of jokingly said, okay, well, you guys accepted that privacy policy, and now I have access to everyone's emails and text messages, so I know everything that you've been doing all day. And everyone sort of had that moment of panic, because of course no one read it. I feel like there's a certain level of respondents allowing these applications to be added to their phones because they trust us. And so I wonder what our level of responsibility is there. I mean, a 5-7 page document that people have to read through, I feel like that's a little irresponsible. We know they're not going to be looking at it. So I just wonder what your thoughts are.
Actually, we have a respondent's right. We initially would call it the Bill of Rights, okay? That was our internal code on that. And we ended up calling it, what was the final word? I can't remember. Responsibilities to respondents or something like that.
Yeah. Europeans didn't like that.
Yeah, the Bill of Rights didn't fit well with, Europeans. So this is a one-pager. It's really just a few paragraphs, and it says essentially in headlines, you have the right to opt out. You don't have to pay to participate. You should know what's going on and how your data is being used, and you still own your own data at any time. So those are the basic rights. Okay, that's a real quick summary.
I was going to say, in addition, exactly what it's going to be used for, and exactly how to uninstall the app as soon as you're done collecting.
Or even not on an app, but a mobile optimized website is not an app. Okay,
and
but you've
exactly,
been there.
We have that responsibility, so that people will continue. I think one of the purposes of making this short is so respondents could read it, and so that mobile can flourish and not raise concerns. I think that was in your own words, that we can, grow mobile versus have to deal with all these concerns coming up.
Speaking of growing mobile, you had another question here. Yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering if with all the news with the NSA and PRISM and stuff, have you noticed changes in respondent sensitivity to this privacy issue with all the latest news?
You see all this stuff on Facebook. Everyone's paranoid about it. You see it on Twitter, the big flourish going on. Just 2 days ago, New York Times article I read, you sent me that, about how, they got busted tracking people walking around the stores, and where was it, in Saks or Neiman or something. The headlines are going to continue, and as long as we're on top of it, we have our own responsibilities, we have our own behavioral changes, or we're trying to actually monitor this stuff. That's what Reg was saying. The reason these codes exist is so that we can answer that responsibly when it does come down the pike. And maybe the newspapers will contact us and say, hey, are you guys actually all just, invading our privacy, or are you behaving responsibly? With guidelines in place, big versions and small versions, at least we have an answer to that. Anything else? Any other question? I know everyone's pretty hungry. Just one more thing, and that is the other role of associations is to help educate and inform. And we're very curious to find out what it is you need to have from all of our points of view. What are your needs regarding mobile education? I'll leave you with this thought. We've heard this term, mobile is a lot like teen sex. We're seeing all these sexy presentations. We think everyone else is doing it. We know our competition's doing it. We'd like to do it, but we maybe don't know how. So, if you do have these kinds of educational needs, let us know. Can't touch that one. Okay, so the other questions here, and again, we're getting ready to go to lunch. Any thoughts on the opportunity for value add and exchange when it comes to big data collection? If participants see the value add, can't we come up with some creative solutions here? Go ahead.
If I'm understanding this correctly, does this refer to customers becoming kind of entrepreneurial and deciding that I'm going to sell my data if you pay me for it?
Yeah,
I think it's a trend right now.
There's a couple people doing that now. They're selling their data now on one of these places where you can gain money. What's it called? Kickstarter? Yeah, Kickstarter. You can go and buy this guy's personal data right now. He's selling it by the hour, day, and week.
During that issue, there's a survey by Pew last March. 60% of respondents said that they did not want the advertising they see online, or they did not want their search data used to choose the ads that were shown online. I mean, over 60% of people. So there are certainly people like this who are happy to sell their personal data, but most people don't like that kind of intrusion. It's kind of that simple.
I wonder if in the future this will become kind of like an income generating stream for everybody out there. Like everybody will have an account and you'll make however much you want to make a month depending on how much you want to tell about yourself.
Yeah, I guess in closing, what I'd say is exactly what I said at the beginning. I believe that many of us are talking apples and oranges up here, and that there's no accepted terminology. And when we talk about an app, it's an opt-in network where people, whether or not they've read it, have asked, and they're participating in surveys. Once they've started a survey, we have a 98% completion rate, and we have a 25 to 30% completion rate within an hour. And if you look at the ratings on our app in the App Store, the only complaint is they want more surveys. And so whether or not we're collecting is really, I think, how we're collecting is because they've opted in, they're choosing to give it to us just like they would in an online panel. And so many of these, I think, data concerns are not applicable.
Well, but what you have then, so we should not kid ourselves. The world we're headed toward is essentially the world we're in now, which is that you will get some number of people who are willing to tell you and share absolutely everything about themselves, right? But that's what we've got now. So what percentage of the population are on online panels, right? 1%, 2%. So those are the people we're going to get. And the question we always have to be asking ourselves, are those 1% to 2% different than the other 98%?
I think as associations, it is our responsibility to treat Canadians or consumers, respondents responsibly, protect their rights. There has to be a balance between our need to collect data and their right to privacy. And I think it really is up to us to strike that balance and to look out for them so that they'll want to continue to participate. I think that the rules are really clear, and I think they're really straightforward as well. So
excellent. Anything else to add? I know you got something to add, don't you?
Not to the discussion. I have to add a big thank you to the panelists and to Mark. So put your hands together for our panel, please.
Thank you.